The chaos of Lagos traffic mirrored Nora's thoughts as her cab wove through the crowded street. She glanced at the headline on her tablet. Tech billionaire Henry Cole faces fraud allegations. Is the empire crumbling? The worst hit harder than expected. Henry Cole, the man who had built Tech from the ground, was now being accused by his business partner of inflating company's profits and engaging in fraudulent activities. Her phone burst, interrupting her thoughts. Nora, I need you in my office immediately, came her boss's urgent voice. Nora sighed, already knowing the call meant her weekend plans were over. Minutes later, Nora entered the office of Barrister Okonkwo, her senior partner. He handed her a thick file with a stiff look on his face. This is big. The man behind Tech, Henry Cole, is in trouble. His business partner Amos has filed charges against him, accusing Henry of inflating company's profit and committing fraud. We are talking about a 1 billion naira lawsuit. Nora opened the file, scanning the details. She had followed Enrico's rise as a self-made entrepreneur, a man who had once been a beacon of success, together with his childhood friend Amos. They had built Tech from the scratch, an innovative tech company that had grown rapidly, revolutionizing Nigeria's agriculture and education sector. Now, Amos, the man who had been with him from the beginning, was accusing Henry of betrayal, claiming that Henry had used their company's funds for personal gain, manipulating the books to paint a brighter financial picture for investors. This makes no sense, Nora muttered, her eyes flicking back to the file. She knew both men. Henry Cole had been a pioneer, an idealist who wanted to change the country with his tech innovations. Amos, on the other hand, had always been the more grounded one, the one who had kept the business running smoothly during its early years. But could he really turn to Henry like this? I need you to handle this case, Barrister Nora, Barrister Okonkwo said, his tone serious. This isn't just about money, it's about reputation. The public loves Henry Cole. If Amos wins this, it will be a scandal that would bring down Tech. We need to act fast. Nora nodded, her mind racing. I'll take the case, but I need to assess everything. The financial records, any communication between Henry and Amos, and most importantly, Henry's personal statement. Barrister Okonkwo gave her a long look, then nodded. I know you're the right person for this. Just be careful. These are two men who built an empire together. But they are old wounds here, and if those get exposed, the fallout will be ugly. As Nora left the office, the weight of the task ahead pressed heavily on her shoulders. She knew both Henry and Amos well enough to know that things weren't always as they seemed on the surface. The partnership between them had been built on trust, but it appeared that trust was now crumbling under the pressure of betrayal. Over the next few days, Nora dived deep into getting to know more about Tech. The evidences against Henry seemed overwhelming at first. Documents detailing inflation revenue reports, falsified accounts, and discrepancies between actual profit and what was presented to investors. She was determined to work on this case. She scheduled a meeting with Henry Cole at his office, hoping to get some answers. When Nora arrived at Tech's company, she was escorted up to the top floor of the high-rising building. Henry was waiting for her at his office, standing by the window, looking out at the city below. I assume you've seen the papers, Henry said, as she stepped into his office. His voice was weary, but there was a glint of something like anger and fear, maybe both. I have, Barrister Nora replied, her eyes sharp. I have read the accusations. Amos is accusing you of inflating profits and misappropriating funds. I need to understand why he's doing this. Henry exhaled. Barrister Nora, you may have a seat. Amos and I started this company with nothing. It was going on well, but things got so complicated. We started having low revenues and investors were pulling out. Something needed to be done, and somewhere along the line I lost control. And Amos, he wanted more. He wanted things to go back to how it was. So is that why you manipulated the document? Barrister Nora asked. To appease the investors to make things look better than they were? Henry's eyes looked hardened with anger. I didn't manipulate anything to appease any investor. I made a mistake, an honest mistake in my calculations and compilations. I never intended to betray Amos. If anything, I wanted to protect the company. Yeah, I agree, there was pressure. But my mistake caused the company's financials to spiral out of control. Nora studied him for a long moment. And now he's suing you? Henry looked away, his face darkening, because he feels betrayed. And maybe he is, but I don't deserve to lose everything. I've worked so hard for this company to grow. Nora was silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in, but she wasn't convinced that pressure could make a tech pro make serious mistakes. But she didn't press further. For now, she had to focus on finding the truth and getting his name cleared. Nora continued her investigations, digging deeper into tangled history between Henry and Amos. The more she uncovered, the more she began to question everything she had thought she knew about the two men. It wasn't just a case of fraud. It was a story of ambition, betrayal, and broken trust. The following day, Nora made her way to Henry's office. Gabriel, a former employee at Coltech, had been dismissed months ago under suspicious circumstances. After digging through old employees' record and conducting interviews, Nora met with Gabriel, a former employee at Coltech. He had confided in her that Henry had once asked him to manipulate the company's financial record to make it appear as though they were more profitable than they actually were. Gabriel had refused to participate, and soon after he was fired. Nora had been reluctant to believe it, but Gabriel's word lingered in her mind. She needed to confront Henry. As she arrived at Henry's office, her emotions were a mix of frustration and doubts. She entered without greeting, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. We need to talk. I know about your conversation with Gabriel. Henry, who had been reviewing some documents at his desk, froze. He put the paper down slowly, his face tightening. What conversation? He asked. Nora was blunt, not allowing any room for evasion. Gabriel told me you asked him to manipulate the books. You wanted to inflate the company's profits, which you refused, hence the reason you fired him. Henry burst into laughter. He looked at her for a moment, stood up from his seat, surprised at the accusations. Gabriel told you that. His tone was bitter. Barrister Nora, you are my lawyer, and I told you every truth. Gabriel and I were friends back then, very good friends. I made such statements jokingly and we laughed about it. It ended there. There was nothing serious attached to it. Nora crossed her arms, unconvinced. So you didn't ask him to manipulate the company's financial record. You didn't ask him to do something that could have ruined everything. I never did. Henry insisted. It was just a joke. I'm a very playful person if you know me. When things are getting rough, I cruise using those things, just to lighten things up. I would never have done that. The reason I fired Gabriel was when I found out he was stealing from the company, and he didn't deny it. Nora stood there for a long moment. Part of her wanted to believe him, but something still gnawed at her. Was Henry really innocent, or was he trying to cover up his mistakes? Well, I don't know what to believe anymore. We'll get to the root of this. The days leading up to the trials were a whirlwind of meetings, paperwork, and preparations. Nora worked tirelessly, gathering evidences to counter the accusations. She spoke with witnesses, reviewed financial records, and met with legal team. The case wasn't just about fraud. It was about proving Erin's integrity. Could they find enough evidence to show that he was simply a victim of circumstance rather than a man who was bent on deceiving his own company? As the trial date approached, Nora and Henry spent countless hours together, strategizing and going over every details. The stress was palpable, but their growing connection was undeniable. In the midst of the tension, they found moments of comfort in each other's presence. Henry was more open with her, sharing his fears and regrets. There were late nights where Nora would stay at the office, and Henry would bring her coffee. The simple act of sharing a quiet moment amidst the chaos began to mean more than she realized. It wasn't just the late nights or the shared glances. It was the way Henry was intentional. He would ask if she was tired, if she needed to rest, if she was hungry. Those little show of care meant a lot to her. Days had passed, and it was now the day the case would be heard in court. The trial was a tense affair, filled with drama and surprises, but thanks to Nora's meticulous work and Henry's honesty, they were able to prove that the accusation of fraud were false. It was clear that Mary had made some mistakes, but he had never intended to deceive anyone. With the court proving him innocent, the public outcry slowly died down, and Nora was filled with so much relief. Henry hugged her as they walked out of the courtroom. In the weeks that followed, Harry and Nora's friendship blossomed. They spent more time together, getting to know each other better. They spent their days celebrating their victory and their night exploring deeper connection that had been slowly growing between them. They laughed, shared stories, and supported each other through ups and downs. Nora realized that despite everything that had happened, she had come to care for Henry deeply. His flaws, his mistakes, and his vulnerability only made him more human in her eyes. And Henry, who had grown so attached to her, came out clean with his intentions. He asked that she be his girlfriend, and Nora accepted, knowing she finds peace around him. And in the quiet moments they shared, she knew their bond was stronger than anything in this world. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please do also like, share, and subscribe to the channel at Substance TV. See you guys in my next video. Until then, stay splendid.